Can we please get a dog?
Julia, we've been over this.
But I want one so badly, and I've been asking for forever.
I know. The answer's still no.
Chances are, if you clicked on this video, that scenario is all too familiar. Trust me, I've been there. I've wanted a dog since I was 7, and finally, at the age of 13, I was able to convince my parents. Living proof. Lucky for you, I'm gonna share just how I changed my parents' firm no into an excited yes. Rosco, we're gonna pour out our secrets, so keep watching. You've probably heard it all your life. All the reasons why your parents don't want a dog. Oh, it's so much responsibility, the cost, and oh, it takes so much time, and we just can't handle that right now, blah, 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 blah. But hear me out for a second. The most important first step in this process for me was to hear my parents out. It's not like I sat them down and had this really formal conversation about it. It was just something that happened naturally over time as I expressed my desire for a dog, and I found that this willingness to listen was really important to forming my game plan. So initially I knew that my dad was more open to the idea of getting a dog, and my mom was more the one that would take more persuading. But either way, both had their reasons why they were hesitant. My mom's core issue was responsibility and mess. She stays home and homeschools both me and my brother and does all the work around the house, and so the thought of a dog adding to all those responsibilities was a lot. My dad shared my mom's concern of the whole responsibility thing, but for him it was less about responsibility and more about the change in lifestyle. Because let's face it, getting a dog will disrupt your routine. There's the cost of owning a dog and what to do with a dog when you go on trips and when you go out and about during the day, and just all the additional chores involved with taking care of a dog. And we can't forget the fact that my dad's a peacemaker, and since my mom didn't want a dog, you get the idea. But here's the thing. After hearing all my parents' reasons why they didn't want a dog, I didn't just end the conversation there. I then asked them this question. If there was one condition in which you'd consider, just consider, getting a dog, what would it be? This was a vital question, and I'm so glad that I asked it because I'm not sure I'd have this little Maltipoo if it weren't for that question. Here's what my mom said. Well, if you find a dog that doesn't shed, so I don't have to be vacuuming 24/7, and everyone would have to share in the responsibility. I don't want to be doing all the work. For my dad, it was more about finding a way to make the new lifestyle work for us. So I took what my parents said and I thought, how can I best persuade them to get a dog, addressing their concerns and showing them that this is the best fit, this is the best step for our family. All my life, I'd had my heart set on getting a golden retriever. Obviously, that wasn't the result. I was somewhat unwilling at first to consider any other dog breeds, but I realized that I was going to have to compromise if I wanted to persuade my parents. So on to phase 2 of my amazing strategy. I still remember one day my dad said to me, you know, no promises. I don't know if we'll get a dog, but if you want to just start the conversation, just do some research. I'm pretty sure I ran upstairs that very moment up to my computer and just started Googling away. It became my mission to research every non-shedding dog breed there was. I wanted to find a dog that was friendly, was non-shedding, that had overall good health, that was, I don't know, enjoyed the outdoors, that was easy to train. Not to say that you have to find the perfect dog breed. I think adoption is wonderful and shelters are a great place to look. I did spend a lot of time going through shelters to try to find non-shedding dogs, but it was a bit difficult and so it didn't end up working out for my family. So in addition to researching dog breeds, I looked up how much it costs to own a dog, like monthly, how much the breed costs, and like how much it costs to care for the dog. I also watched way too many training videos. I also researched breeders of the different breeds that I found because I wanted to make sure that before I went any further, we could actually get this dog. But you know, all during this time, I still kind of really wanted a golden retriever, and so I was having a bit of trouble with the idea of getting a dog other than a golden retriever, because in my mind, that was the perfect fit for our family. It wasn't until that legendary day that I was walking with my friend down in my town, and this random person I'd never seen before, and I might add, I've never seen since. And our town is small and I don't often see people that I don't know. Came walking by with 2 dogs, and one caught my eye. because that very day I'd been researching Maltese. And I looked at that dog and I was like, oh, that looks like a Maltese. The lady stopped and my friend and I were talking to her, and the little dog came and sniffed me. And I asked the lady, and I'm shy, so this doesn't usually happen. I asked the lady, what dog breed is that? And she said, oh, it's a Maltipoo. He was such a cute little dog and I immediately fell in love. The funny thing was though, when she said it was a Maltipoo, my first thought was, why is she calling her Maltese a Maltipoo? Like I thought it was like she was like coddling him or something. But that night I went to my computer and I looked up Maltipoo, and there I made my discovery. So all during the time I was researching, I didn't just research and keep it all to myself. I verbalized what I was finding out. This way I kept the conversation fluid, and I was expressing how excited I was about this whole process and how serious and committed I was to the idea of getting a dog. It also made the conversation a lot more casual, and I was able to tap into some of my parents' soft spots and just gradually warm them up to the idea. For instance, one day I remember I was in the car going shopping with my mom, and I pulled out my phone and I was showing her pictures of Maltipoos on Pinterest. And she was like, oh, they're so cute. And I was like, yeah, they are. And guess what? They don't shed. And then I just started going off about all the wonderful things I'd researched and found out about Maltipoos. And it was the first time that my mom actually seemed like, oh, this is a thing. Like, she actually didn't seem so opposed to it. I'd heard it a million times, and you probably have too. Oh, if you want to convince your parents to get a dog, you have to show them that you're responsible. But it's true, to convince your parents, you have to show them. You have to show them that you're ready for this big responsibility. For me, this was something I demonstrated over many years. So I actually asked my dad, hey, can you tell me some ways in which I showed responsibility that you can remember? And if that actually helped to persuade you? And he said it definitely helped to persuade him and my mom. So he started listing them all off, and so without further ado, taking care of gerbils. I had many over the years, and although the responsibility wasn't huge, it showed that I could care for a pet. My diligence in researching. So I didn't only research dogs over the course of my journey to persuade my parents. If you watch this video, which I recommend you do because it's kind of the more personal, longer story of my persuasion, then you would know that I went through a phase where I really wanted a bunny. And I wrote this whole report on just why I should get a bunny, why my parents should say yes. And that took a ton of work. So that in itself showed a lot of responsibility about pet ownership and just my dedication. Not to mention all the research I'd done about dogs and how I addressed my parents' concerns and brainstormed solutions. I also showed responsibility by staying on top of school, especially as a homeschooler, managing my schedule, and doing household chores. My dad also brought up when I had a cookie sale when I was younger, and I organized all of that, and that took a lot of responsibility. Also, I offered to help pay for getting a dog. I didn't end up actually helping to pay for the expenses, but just my offer, like my willingness to find some way to make money and help, really stood out to my parents as they made their decision. So I have some additional tips that I didn't do, but that you might find helpful. You could foster a dog from an animal shelter. This is a great way to show that you are ready for a dog because, I mean, it's a dog coming into your house. It's kind of like the logical step before getting a dog and just trying out, seeing what it's like. You could walk dogs around your neighborhood. This is actually something that I do now after I got a dog, but I would recommend doing it before because if you have experience with handling dogs and interacting with dogs and caring for dogs, the more experience you have and the responsibility that comes with that, the more likely you are to persuade your parents. Kind of going along with this, you could also house sit someone that has a dog. Again, it's kind of like training wheels, like you're just kind of warming up to the idea, you're showing your responsibility while also helping somebody else. Okay, so gaining knowledge and being responsible, it all helps, but at the end of the day, it's about persuading your parents. You've got to activate those persuasive skills. And if you're like, oh, I don't have persuasive skills, don't fret, just be yourself. Honestly, just be yourself. For example, I let my imagination shine. I painted what life would look like if my family had a dog. I remember doing this ever since I was little. I mean, we'd be out on a family adventure and I'd be like, imagine if we had a dog and it was sitting on my lap right now and I could be petting it and we could be taking it on adventures and going hiking with it and blah, 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 blah. I also stayed true to my nature and I didn't give up. I was persistent and I asked again and again and again and again, and I never let the conversation drop. Maybe this is wrong. but I made them feel bad for me. I brought up back when I was 8 years old and my mom said, oh, when we move to a bigger house and we have a bigger backyard, maybe I'll consider a dog. And here we were in a bigger house with a bigger backyard, and my mom still hadn't given in. I reminded them of all the hours I'd spent researching. I reminded them of how many pets I'd gone through wanting and they'd always declined the idea. I referenced all the times I'd shown responsibility and how much I wanted the responsibility and how willing I was to do the work. So what happened? How did we end up here? Well, like I mentioned before, if you want the full in-depth story, go look at this video. But I'm gonna read you something in my journal that pretty much sums it up. And I didn't plan this when I got this journal, but it's covered in dogs, so I just think that kind of brings in the point that, you know, this was the year. This was Friday, June 21st, 2019. Lately, I can't get dogs off my mind. I want one so badly. I yearn for one so much that one night I couldn't stop sobbing. Mom's issue is hair cleanup, and I wanted a golden which sheds tons. My friend and I were walking downtown one day recently, and there was a lady walking 2 dogs. One of the dogs was golden and small and adorable. She said it was a Maltipoo. I did research, and Maltipoos don't shed. They're apparently affectionate, friendly, and overall adorable. Last night I had a conversation with Mom and Dad to talk about dogs. Basically, they're both open to the idea, and Mom's glad that they don't shed. They seemed equally enthusiastic. They're leaning towards a yes. I literally was overcome with joy last night. Mom and Dad are going to do more research while I'm at camp and announce whether or not we can get a dog, in all caps, on the day I get home from camp. I'm so thrilled and excited and feel less stressed. I want a Maltipoo so much. Hopefully, ... As you can probably predict, they did say yes. It was a culmination of all my years of effort, but I really think it came down to that night. I shared my imagination. I shared the life that I envisioned with a dog by our side. I shared my expansive knowledge about Maltipoos and my willingness to care for a dog and train him and look after him. And I showed them a breeder that was only an hour away from our house. All this time, I'd been quietly warming up my parents to this moment. And I'm not sure I'd ever gone to bed more excited. Soon after I got back from camp, we put a deposit down for a Maltipoo and got on the waiting list, and 8 months later, we brought this little guy home. So what's the moral of the story? Respect your parents, be patient, don't give up. Although it's difficult, persuading your parents is not impossible. If you need some help in tugging at your parents' heartstrings, I recommend you go watch these 2 videos with them next. Thank you so much for watching, and Rosco and I will see you in the next video. Bye! And good luck!